So this false self causes the problems. The egotism, the egotistical maniac where a person's a pain in the ass, is basically because they're trying to be not what they really are. If you were really who you were, you would not be a pain in the ass, and you'd be quite satisfied, very satisfied in fact. If you ever had a challenge in your life where you feel that you failed in somehow, you feel that in some way or other you could have done a better job. Maybe you're not so good at interpersonal relationships. Maybe you don't know how to talk to people. Maybe you're not very efficient. Maybe you procrastinate too much. And you might have had the experience of thinking, if only I could be different. And then you try to be different, but no matter how much you try, you just seem to be the same old you. No matter what you do, you seem to be stuck in a rut. Identity shifting is a concept whereby we actually shift the identity and we become a newer, better version of ourselves, 2.0 as it were. And the idea of something like identity shifting is to take all these habits which are not serving us, things like procrastination, things like not knowing how to talk to people and so on and so forth, and shifting them, changing them dynamically. You might have heard of concepts, you probably have, things like the law of attraction and the idea that we attract certain things into our life. And maybe you've heard of neuro-linguistic programming and how you can shift things very, very quickly. So what's all this about and what can we do in the real world? I think to begin with, we have to understand what is the challenge and why is it so hard to change? Because if you think about it very simply, there is a theory that says that it takes 21 days to create a habit. Now, if it takes 21 days to take a habit, surely all I have to do to be a much better version of myself is for 21 days to do something and stick with it. Say for 21 days I won't procrastinate, or for 21 days I'll eat the right food, or for 21 days I will do a course on how to communicate better, or 21 days time management perhaps. But yet we find that we try these things and yet we fall off the wagon. Why is it so hard? It's something I've often thought about. Why is human beings compliance so hard? Why shouldn't it be much easier? We don't have this problem with computers. We can reprogram computers like that. But why human beings find it so hard to change? That we make these huge efforts. There's an entire self-development industry out there, $1 trillion industry of people trying to change people. And yet it seems so difficult to change. And if you look at every society in the world, every group of people are having the usual challenges about not having peace of mind, don't know how to communicate, don't know how to negotiate, don't know how to talk to other people, procrastinating, lacking self-confidence, etc., 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 etc. So what is the problem? And I feel that the reason why we have to understand the development of human personality. There's a thing which I like to call the essential self. And the essential self is basically the self that you come into the world with. There's many different theories about how the human being develops. But my theory is that there is an ideal self or a essential self, which is the real you. So when we look at small kids, in many ways small kids are very, very dynamic. And they say things which entertain us deeply and seem to be incredibly honest. There's something very genuine about small kids. Small kids always seem to have a lot of confidence. Yet by the time people become teenagers, or even just bigger kids, we see that confidence ebbing away, insecurities, acting out. Why does this all happen? And there is a theory in psychoanalysis. There's a famous psychoanalyst, Jacques Lacan, and he talks about the mirror phase, that the young child sees the world around them and they try and have a sense of completeness, of making sense of themselves. But it's never really real. We can't really make sense of things. We can't see things accurately. We could call it like the mirror image. That when I look into the mirror, I might look at this hand, and is it the right hand or the left hand? And in the mirror image, it will be, if it's the right hand, it'll be the left hand. Okay? Same thing, we get a shock when we see ourselves on a TV screen or a photograph, because we're used to seeing a mirror image of ourselves. And in a photograph, we see ourselves as we are. So we're used to seeing the right is left and left is right. And when we see a photograph, we see the right is right and the left is left. And we get a bit of a shock. So the theory that Lacan has, Jacques Lacan, is that the young child creates a mirror image of how they think they should be. And the problem with this is you basically learn to not be yourself. And from what I can see, I think that stands up fairly strongly in society. That we try and be what we're not. And my feeling is that there is an ideal self, but it's not some self that's constructed from outside us. It's actually we're born ideal, we're born perfect, but we learn how to be imperfect. We often hear people talk about things like, don't be egotistical. Now, the reality is, we can't be without an ego. We have to have an ego to have any sense of being. To watch this video, an ego must be watching. There has been cases, and at times very popular cases, in the sense it was very prevalent earlier in the 20th century, for example, of people being in a kind of comatose situation whereby you could sit them on a chair or take them for a walk, but they were, physically awake but not there. And it's a very weird thing. And I remember when I was studying psychoanalysis, one of the subjects we had is the history of madness. It was a very fascinating subject. And one of the things we picked up with the history of madness is that historically, there's historic periods of certain mental illnesses. In the early part of the 20th century, there was quite a few cases of people who were basically kind of comatose while awake. They were wandering around the place, but they were almost like zombies. And the general theory was that they had maybe so little self-esteem and such a lack of confidence that they retreated within themselves and became kind of like an automaton. And then these things kind of spread and become a kind of on a subconscious level, other people become like that. So if we take the case of these people who are kind of comatose while awake, they're not egotistical. The ego, for whatever reason, is basically being crushed. So you need your ego. Your ego is very important. The real thing is, we all know you need an ego, but people just don't want you to be a pain in the ass. They want you to be a nice person who's attentive and interested in them, not just somebody who's conceited and self-absorbed. So there's a higher ego and a lower ego. So ego is good, but we have a lower ego and a higher ego. And the problem I feel in life is early in life we identify with certain things, and that creates a false sense of self. And because of that false sense of self, we try and fix it by doing certain things. So for example, say somebody's a narcissist. Every narcissist has a very low self-esteem, but it's so low in fact that they will start pumping up their self-esteem to feel good about themselves by having an ideal image where they're great about everything. Same thing with paranoid people. If someone's paranoid and thinks that someone's after them, again, it's somebody with low self-esteem, but at a subconscious level, they create an image of themselves that somebody's chasing after me. Because if somebody's chasing after me, it gives a sense of I'm important. People are chasing me or trying to influence me. It's a way of feeling important. So this false self causes the problems. The egotism, the egotistical maniac where a person's a pain in the ass, is basically because they're trying to be not what they really are. If you were really who you were, you would not be a pain in the ass. And you'd be quite satisfied. Very satisfied, in fact. So really, we just got to go back to this essential self. Now, let's get back to this thing of identity shifting. Here's the problem. People don't like how they are in the world. And what they do is they want to change how they are. And the problem is they tend to force change upon themselves. And when you're forcing changes upon yourself, you get a thing called self-sabotage. I used to have it a lot years ago. I don't really have it these days. But self-sabotage is things like you'll forget where the car keys are, you'll forget an appointment, you'll switch on the tap in the bathroom and forgot to switch it off and so on. It's like there's part of you fighting yourself. And there was a movie that came out a few years ago, I think it was maybe 2016, 2017, where they had these little cartoon people, and it was about this girl who had a personality crisis, and it's all her sub-personalities. And what's very nice about it was that kind of pretty accurate that we actually have sub-personalities. And so each sub-personality actually has a voice. So what's happened is that there's aspects of yourself that in order to create this ego ideal. So Sigmund Freud used to have this idea of an ideal self and ego ideal. The ideal self is who you really want to be, which is kind of a heroic figure, which is kind of a fantasy. I would say the ideal self is not a fantasy. You are ideal. You just don't know you're ideal. Then you have the ego ideal, and the ego ideal is who you think you should be. And basically most people think they should be an asshole. That's basically it. They just think they should be like all sorts of things that they're not. And so they try and force themselves to be something that they're not. And the problem then is little parts of themselves, which are now being denied and repressed, those aspects of themselves act out. And so when you're forcing change and trying to be a perfect person, you act out. I'll give you another example. In my day-to-day job, as it were, I work in a school, I do leadership training, mainly, and some career counseling. Now, the approach I've always taken is that you are basically who you're meant to be. You're born perfect, and you just need to find yourself. And so it's about unearthing things and finding yourself, okay? But I do remember many years ago, I used to attend a college, and there was a guy who was our communications professor, you could say. He used to come in and give us like acting classes and stuff to learn how to communicate, role play and all this stuff. It's a fascinating course. And I met some of his students because he used to have, like, run a kind of theater group and stuff. And I was very fascinated at the time. I was very young at the time. I was very fascinated by these people because all his students, or his student graduates, wherever they were kind of like anchor men and anchor women. They were like these kind of perfectly groomed people who spoke perfectly and were super confident and all this stuff. I was very impressed at the time. As many years later, I thought that the work that I'm doing is thinking the way I'm working with people is completely different, because the way that I work with people is they become more who they are. And I work with the uniqueness of that personality, and I try and bring out who they are and their beauty rather than trying to be something else. And it was only a mature reflection I could look back and see that that the approach that this guy had was try and fake it till you make it, become a carbon cutout of the person you would like to be, that hero or heroine kind of person you want to be. Now, there's nothing wrong with it, but basically these are the two approaches to leadership training, which is fake it till you make it or become yourself. And so I think this idea of identity shifting is people try and fake it till they make it. They try and become this bigger, better version of themselves, and they're forcing themselves too much, and they're having internal conflicts with subpersonalities. And that's basically why they're fumbling over themselves, falling over themselves. So how can we change quickly without having this issue? And also there's a space for fake it till you make it, because there's a lot to be said for confidence. And we could say you need confidence and you need competence, but you don't get competence without confidence. So to some degree you have to fake it till you make it. To some degree you have to take a step forward. So I'm not saying it's the wrong way to fake it till you make it. I'd actually say that the approach to bring about change in your life is to some degree to fake it till you make it. To some degree trying to be some ideal, put yourself out there and try and be the man or try and be the woman. But on the other level is trying to be yourself, whoever the hell that is. Okay, it's a balancing act. But what I will say is if you want to shift your identity and become some better, more like 2.0 version of yourself, don't force too much. To some degree, yeah, you might have to go and make some declarations to people, create a new wardrobe, new approach, and make a new version of yourself. But you're not a software program. You're not that simple. You're actually far more complex as a human being. You're very complex. And if you force too much, you will either fail, as in self-sabotage yourself to the degree that you'll just fall off the wagon and won't achieve the success you want, or you become a carbon cutout. And lots of people do that. They become this sort of not ideal self, they become an ego ideal. They become something that a caricature of themselves. We see this a lot in some of the YouTube personalities. They become a caricature, like they don't even know who they are anymore. They're just a copy of a copy of a copy. And this is not good. So fake it till you make it to some degree, and find yourself to some degree. Don't force too much when you're bringing about changes in your life and trying to shift your personality. So work with yourself. I remember many years ago when I was a boy, my parents had some various books, and one of the books was a guy called Gaylord User. It was a crazy name, but Gaylord User wrote a lot of books about women's beauty and stuff like that. But one of the nice things, I used to read these books, I used to read a lot of books when I was young. One of the things I liked about the Gaylord User books was he'd say things like, there's no such thing as an ugly bride. I thought it was really nice. That he felt that if he was working on, say, a bride to make her beautiful for a wedding, it was finding her inner beauty. See, you got two ways of doing it. One is you dolly the girl up so she looks like some supermodel, and the other way is you dolly her up a little bit, but not too much. She's still her. She's still her unique self. And that's the advice I'd give you, is that push a little bit, but don't create some kind of unrealistic caricature. Now, the final question then is, how do we identity shift quickly and easily? Because we have this thing of, say, for example, neurolinguistic program where you can change very quickly. We have the idea of paradigms, paradigm shift, quantum shifts, quantum meditation, law of attraction. How do we apply these things? How do we do identity shifting quickly and easily? And here's an interesting shift. Now, this is full of paradoxes because on one level, it's very difficult to change. On another level, we can change moment by moment by moment by moment by moment. Largely, who you are is because you are attached to who you think you are. And you can actually free yourself to a great degree by just letting go of the attachment. How can you let go of that attachment? How can you become a freer version of yourself? Well, I would suggest a little bit of self-reflection. Something I often say in this channel is like diary writing, getting an idea of your life story. If you start writing out your life story and finding out who you are and what you believe, you'll find you have certain values and you have certain opinions made about yourself and the world based upon your experiences and your reflection on experiences. But the thing to look at that is, first of all, take a diary, write out your life story, and then start reflecting and realizing, you know something, all these thoughts I have, all these judgments I've made, all these beliefs and values I have, are actually arbitrary and subjective. And maybe I don't have to be all of these things. I can select and deselect using my rational mind which ones are important to me and which ones are not. Once we do this, then we can take a mature approach. We can use things like autosuggestion. We can use neurolinguistic techniques, quantum meditations, all these sort of things. We can use these techniques to push ourselves forward and make changes, which basically we can reprogram the mind. Okay, but first of all, I think where I think a lot of people are missing is you need to do some self-reflection first on who do I think I am, because you're holding yourself into a sort of a matrix, let's say, a matrix of personality matrix based upon your values, beliefs, experiences, reflections upon experiences. And first of all, you need to take a look at them and then deconstruct. So you need to deconstruct yourself to some degree and reconstruct. But you need to deconstruct yourself and reconstruct yourself in a way that you're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. How are you going in the right direction? In general, you're going in the right direction when you feel more you, when you feel freer to find your voice, speak your truth, and be yourself. That means you're going more in the right direction. So the key is like renovating a house. You say you have a 200-year-old house. You don't want to renovate in such a way that it now looks like a new building. You want to keep the cool stuff while making it nice. Okay, so how to do identity shifting quickly is spend a little bit of time finding out what you really believe and really think, and then you can do things like autosuggestion, NLP techniques like reframing, all these sort of useful things, visualization, thinking and feeling about what you want to achieve, getting yourself into a vibrational rate, all that good stuff you can do. But first you got to understand who you are, your psychology, and then you got to some degree start thinking about, is that really true? Is that really so? Is it that all people are bad? Is it that all men are cheaters? Is it that nobody will ever give me the pay rise I want, or nobody will ever have the relationship I want with them, or life sucks? Is it really like that? Or is that something I bought into? That somebody, when I was a kid, like an introjection, I just sucked it in from my parents. They said these things and I picked up that prejudice? Or that I just came to that conclusion, and maybe it's a wonky conclusion. We have to have some degree of self-reflection if we want to really change without all those inner conflicts taking place, okay? So identity shifting is something we should all be working towards, and we can shift our identities quite quickly, but we should be shifting away from the false self to the true self, away from the ego ideal to the ideal ego, and that takes a little bit of self-reflectivity. So I'd certainly challenge you today, if you want to change certain aspects of yourself, first of all, do some self-reflection, and then boldly make those changes, and to some degree fake it till you make it, but ultimately it should always have that bigger picture of coming back to who I really am, of really finding myself, and really unfolding and becoming the fullness of who I am, and we can see that through ourselves, finding our voice more, finding yourself being more relaxed, more easygoing, more free in our expression, because we're not tense, we're not forcing ourselves anymore, we're becoming more who we really are. And which is again the paradox of this, is that you go on a journey just to come back to yourself, that you're always just you. Okay, so I hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe if you do. I'll talk to you next time.